Welcome to the Big Play Cleveland show. We are celebrating the Browns' back-to-back rivals, divisional rivals. W's, everybody. How exciting.
Yeah. Big rivalry week. I think that's going to be the theme of the show, just celebrating those two huge AFC North wins. Gab got the best of the Steelers, got the best of the Ravens the week before. Now they look to avenge the old school Browns and beat down Denver. We got the Ohio State Buckeyes going up to that team up north. So this is going to be an absolute action-packed show. Our Cavs are rolling. We're gonna talk all about it.
And let's talk about the energy in Cleveland from yesterday. I'll tell you what. The Browns, fantastic. You're playing a division rival there, and the Steelers at home really had the playoff atmosphere. I was there in the seats. JW and the Browns ownership asked everybody to be there early, and I was there before the anthem. The place was absolutely packed, and that's very rare. You hardly ever see that. And we're talking all the way, the upper deck, everybody was there. Fantastic. They had a flyover, and then they had Jimmy Donovan.
Oh, yeah.
Smashing the guitar. I mean, how fantastic was that? I mean, the energy. And then they show Nick Chubb up there on the scoreboard. The energy was absolute peak at that moment. The Browns responded in the first half. Looked really good. Right after second half, kind of stubbed our foot a little bit, but then ended up getting it done. Then after that, a walk across town. Our Cavs get it done against the NBA champions from last year. So really good day in Cleveland, really good vibes, really big week with all the rivals this week. So it's going to be fun, and it's fun to be a sports fan right now in Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, absolutely. Cavs got that win done too. No Donovan Mitchell in that win against the Nuggets. And then how about this one, guys? I as high as that energy was, Kevin Stefanski said that he wanted a horn to go off in the Muni lot around 12:30 so fans could start walking over for the 1 o'clock game. Kevin, I love it. We do gotta educate him on one thing, and this is my only complaint with Kevin Stefanski on this entire show because he pitched a gem. You got to set that horn off from the Muni lot way before 12:30. That's a little bit of a walk, especially when drinks are involved and that whole thing. To get from the Muni lot to the stadium, you probably got to set that horn off, Chris. What, around noon?
Yeah, I would say so, and that's kind of our tradition. Is we start the walk over there about noon, and usually it's pretty light. You're not talking about a whole lot of traffic going in there in terms of walking traffic. I tell you what, yesterday packed going in there at noon. All of the different gates were all packed with people, and it was great to see. You could feel the energy from the Browns fans going in there, and everybody was there ready to get to their seats to see, what was promised, which was a fantastic flyover. It was fantastic energy and everything just to kind of set up that game, and it was fun.
The fans played their part literally from Jump Street. Like, think about all the penalties, the timeouts that the Steelers had to use. I think the Browns were only penalized once in that entire game.
The whole game once.
Yeah, the Steelers were complete opposite. They were burning timeouts because Pickett couldn't hear the play calls. They were showing him on the TV trying to mash his headset into his ears. The fans definitely showed up and showed out, and we're gonna need that energy now for the rest of the way because with DTR or Joe Flacco or whatever it might be starting these games, they're all gonna be close. They're all gonna be nail biters. The defense is gonna have to play that well in each and every one of these games, and for that to happen, the fans got to be really, really loud in that stadium.
Who would you like to see moving forward, DTR or Flacco?
I would definitely want DTR at this point. I think yesterday he showed us just enough. And it's kind of funny, on that final drive, he hadn't done anything in the second half. I mean, we really were not moving the ball. The fans, and we talked a lot about this, the fans got behind him and started chanting DTR, DTR before that last drive. And ladies and gentlemen, that's faith. When you have seen nothing out of a man the entire second half and you are chanting his name on that last drive, that is faith from Cleveland Browns fans, and he paid off in a big way. Moves the ball, 40 yards or so to get us into field goal range. Wins the ball game there. So, I think you got to stick with him. You look at Flacco if things are going off the rails, but right now, DTR, we've got the energy going. Let's keep that going. We're going to be going on to Denver. It's going to be a tough place to play. It's going to be tough for him. It's going to be a new test for us, but I think you go in with him.
I'm in lockstep with that, Chris, and my reasoning why is you got to just keep, ride the hot hand. I'm riding DTR till the wheels fall off. Bringing in Joe Flacco was smart because you lose that vet leadership relationship now with Deshaun Watson. He's going into surgery. He's going into rehab. He's not going to be there on the sideline. And I thought it was interesting. I think it was actually Tony Grossi who said that there were tears in DTR's eyes after he threw that one interception and he was going to the sideline. And Deshaun looked at him and said, "Hey, bro, this is fun. You know, this is sports. Like, you got to smile. You got to enjoy this moment. Like, yes, it was a mistake, but you got to bounce back from this." I think Joe Flacco could be that guy for DTR to just remind him, hey, be yourself, play loose, have fun in the absence of Deshaun Watson. So I think we got to ride with DTR, but if things start getting shaky, we'll have that conversation.
Joe Flacco, elite?
I don't know.
Not at this point, right? Far from elite.
Yeah.
But maybe he can stabilize things from a veteran presence, like you were saying, in that meeting room and on the sidelines for him. Hopefully he won't have to get in the games, but he will be there if we need him.
That's valuable mentorship. Is this the wrap-up? Okay. Guys, we got to come back. We're going to do our featured interview with our Lipton Hard Tea once we get our interview on, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show. We have got our guest here, our featured interview brought to you by Lipton Hard Tea. And we're joined by director and filmmaker Allen Farst. Oh, yeah, you got to get the hat on.
Yeah, you got to put the Lipton Hard Tea big hat on to talk to Allen.
Big hat.
Allen, what is going on? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, how you guys doing? My hat's not as big as that, but I'm willing.
That's okay. That's okay. We're glad to have you. Hey, so we're joined now by Allen Farst, director, filmmaker for the new film that's out in Triangle Park. And Allen, could you just tell a little bit about the ideation behind making this Triangle Park film? Maybe give the people a little synopsis of what it's about and how this all really came to be.
You know, for me, it was about 3 years ago when we started to come into the 100th year of football, right? And I was from Dayton, Ohio, and I was coming off a film called The Tree Man with Chuck Leavell, who was the Rolling Stone keyboardist. And I wanted to do something for my hometown, and this had been on the radar, you know, but I just thought, man, you know, this is a crazy story. Like, when you think about telling stories, you're kind of like, yeah, what is the very first game? Who played in it? You know, who scored the first touchdowns? There was a lot of unknowns there, right? And so I just thought this is a great place to spend 3 years of my life, which, you know, I thought it'd be 2, but it ends up being 3, right? So, but if you love football, and I kind of did it for the love of the game. I grew up playing sports as a quarterback and played 4th through 12th. And then fast forward several years later, when you meet the Ben Roethlisbergers and the Troy Aikmans and you see how massive these guys are, you realize why you didn't play in the NFL.
You know, Allen, being from Dayton, how much did you know about the Dayton Triangles prior to your work on this film? Or was this really you just kind of going into this thing blind and having to figure all of this out to make this movie?
It was definitely, I would say that you've heard the term the cart before the horse. I think we had 2 carts before the horse, you know, and you're meeting descendants, you're lifting up rocks, you're saying who has what. Do you have anything? In the movie, you're going to see this necklace that all the players got that played on the Dayton Triangles, which is really this rare animal. It's a unicorn. There's only 2 in existence, and we found both of them. You'll see one in the movie. That's worth the price of admission alone. I mean, it's a really cool necklace, and you're going to get comments from, you know, Joe Theismann and Troy Aikman and you know, other guys that we're going to celebrate generationally in the movie, like Eric Dickerson. We've got Joe Buck, just a who's who of guys that have a lot of passion for the game, that really rallied around myself and Michelle Tafoya, our narrator, so that we could really tell the story, you know, in a really creative, great light, you know.
So, Allen, at the center of this entire documentary is the game, right? The 1920 matchup between the Dayton Triangles, the Columbus Panhandles, excuse me. Yep. For fans that would go back, and maybe fans of the NFL today, would they recognize the game that they were playing there, that first game? How much did it look like today's game?
I think when you get inside the white lines, I think a lot of the game is similar, but it's just gotten bigger, faster, stronger, and the hits are, semis versus, bicycle hits. I'm sure they were tough back in the day. They didn't have the padding, the protection, things like that. But, these guys that we have today, they're the elite of the elite around the world that come in to play this, and I think it's, as we've seen, other sports pull up, soccer and other things for select, you realize that the NFL is really just the choice of the athletes and the professionalism that we have in the United States and worldwide, really. So I would think, though, back then you had 5,000 people standing around a field. They paid $1.75 to get in. It wasn't like the very first game, right? But it was the first NFL game between two NFL teams. And that's where the confusion sometimes gets in on these blog sites and social medias where they're like, well, that's not really the first pro game. And you're like, well, it is for the NFL. And that's what it was. So we had a lot of guys on the Dayton Triangles that were still in their prime. The Columbus Panhandles were kind of with the Nesser brothers that everybody knows, the first family in football. But, they were kind of getting older at that time. And so, and we just had we had some really good athletes that could pass. I mean, we had really two great quarterbacks. Our starting quarterback was Al Mart. He was 6'1". He was fairly big for those kind of guys. And we had another guy that was Raudebush that would have played at Denison. And Denison, was a real hotbed for football in Ohio. And what happened with them is they started passing the ball in the early, like kind of like 1910, 1912 in that time frame. That was even before Newt Rockne. And these guys went from scoring 18 to 20 points a game to scoring 70 points a game. So the pass it really impacted the game a lot.
Denison University in Granville, Ohio. So I know it very well. Yeah. So talk more about, the influence of Ohio and specifically the Dayton area on football as it's come to be.
Well, Ohio was a hotbed, right? So a lot of people don't realize that we had the most football teams, right? So, Akron Pros were the ones that won in 1920. They're the ones that won the league. We had, Canton Bulldogs, Panhandles, Triangles, but all of that was happening here. And then you even think about down the road as we start going, and I wanted to show you guys this. I've got a magical ball that'll float up here. But this is a gold football that we did with the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Wilson. And, cool. Wilson's made every single NFL ball has come out of Ada, Ohio, right? And, just all of that we have here. And Paul Brown, creating two teams and was a part of bringing back players and that were of color that could come back and play the game. He was a big help in that, along with the Los Angeles Rams. When they went to build a stadium, they were told at that time, hey, if you want to use public funds, you're going to have all kinds of walks of life be able to play on your football team. It can't just be segregated and it can't be like that. So I just feel like the league, to me, is something that is a reflection of society. And as it's evolved, we've evolved. And it's kind of interesting that there is no other sport that shines that big of a light on societal change than the NFL.
Super cool. Very historical. We want to keep you here. We've got to take one short break. We'll be back with Allen Farst. Thank you so much. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show. We are joined by a filmmaker. We've got Allen Farst with us telling us about his latest project here. Where did we pick up, Nick?
Yeah, we were just talking about some of the influences of the Dayton, Ohio area. Really, Ohio just being such a hotbed for the birthplace and the renaissance for professional football as we know it today. Allen, you mentioned some of the who's who of this movie and, some of the big people that you'll hear from. To you, though, who was the most interesting person that you had the opportunity to work with on this project?
Well, yeah, I got to be careful how I answer that now.
He's setting you up a little bit here, Alan.
Yeah,
Watch out.
Yeah, I'm going to have Joe Buck or Aikman call me any minute now. So, but I will say honestly, as a 14-year-old kid, selfishly, I was a quarterback, but my favorite player was Eric Dickerson. Okay, so Eric Dickerson is in this. We're celebrating his, because there's a lot of generational moments in this film, right? And one is the women's 19th Amendment. They got the vote in 1920, right around when the league was formed. But Dickerson in 1984, when he put up the 2105 rushing yards for a single season, I was following that guy for the last 2 or 3 years, and I just loved him. I thought he was just magical. And 39 years later, here I am asking him, to be in this film because I wanted to celebrate that. No one really, celebrates it. And you think about all those like thousands of running backs that have come through the league and not one has been able to break his record. Yeah. And I just think that's just a testament of how tough that record really is to get. And so, tomorrow, which is the night before Thanksgiving at 7 p.m. in all 32 NFL cities, I'm so proud to tell you that AMC Theaters stepped up and has us doing a premiere at 7 in all of those theaters. So if any of your listeners want to go to triangleparkmovie.com or they just want to go straight to AMC Theaters and look up Triangle Park, they will pick their theater that's closest to them in those cities. And, it's one night, so we want to get everybody out there that's not, staying at home. We want to get them out and go to a theater and learn about football. But I guarantee there's a lot in this film. If you're a football fan, we're going to blow your mind on a few things that we're going to show you.
How exciting. From a filmmaking standpoint and your experience, what is some of the harder hurdles to get over in putting all of it together and making it come to fruition?
Well, the hardest part is always the money. And I can make anything, it just, you just have to have the money to drive it to the moon, and so in time, you need that as well. But having the proper funds to really do what you want to do is always key. And then you have to know some people, and you've had to put out some good work if you want to get, guys like Tony Dungy and Sean McVay and Cooper Kupp and Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, you have to have done some good work. Otherwise, they're going to obviously pass on probably working with you. So I've just been fortunate through the years that I've been able to work on some really good commercials and other films that have allowed me to get this far.
And I imagine there's a lot of parallels between you trying to put a movie together as there is to a league starting, like the NFL and having their first game. I do have to ask, when you think about the Dayton Triangles, why were they called the Dayton Triangles?
Well, the Dayton Triangles, if you looked at a map, it kind of probably looked like a triangle this way, an upside down one, because it would be coming from the north down. Yeah. And there was 2 rivers that went around that little body of land. And so there was some thought that the triangles became basically on a map. Deeds and Kettering, who started the starter and all that, there was some thought that their factories formed a triangle on a map. But the real thing was that it was a body of water. Huh. And so they called it Triangle Park. And it was approved that way with some city people. And that's how they came up with the name. And then the Columbus Panhandles, from the Columbus team, the Panhandles worked on the Pennsylvania Railroad. And they were the Panhandle Division. And makes so you'll actually see the real whistle that was from the very first game in the movie. And it's a crazy story because it's a panhandle whistle, but it was because the actual referee forgot his whistle that day. And so he had to borrow a whistle. And what's the chances you got 3 guys that worked on the Pennsylvania Railroad have a whistle?
Right there.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so
cool. That's how you get some of those names.
Cool. Thank you for all the work that you've put into that and for sharing with us. And good luck on your future projects too. We're super excited. And be sure to check it out, trianglepark.com.
That's triangleparkmovie.com. Yeah, it just, Google us up if you can't find it, and we're out there. You know what I mean? It's easy on the Google machine. So
awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Alan, for joining us.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great turkey coming up. Great Thanksgiving.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
All
All
right,
righty, guys. That's filmmaker, director Allen Farst from Triangle Park. And pretty cool, whenever we could bring in some local Ohio people that have made it big on that side. We do so many sports guests, but we've also do movie guests. And when you can find a cool intersect like that, somebody from Ohio that's made it big and now giving love to his hometown of Dayton, that is pretty cool.
And a nice reminder that football grew up right here in Ohio, and that really is where everything started, was right here. So very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will take another break. When we come back, we will get you guys some fill in the blank, and we'll jump into our Browns headlines, our Cavs, and your regularly scheduled Big Play Cleveland show. So don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show. We've got Nick Pedone, Chris McNeil. I'm Gabriella Cruz, and it's time for a little fill in the blank, shall we? Or do you guys want to break down first? What your call?
Yeah, let's do some fill in the blank.
Yeah,
Gab.
let's do it.
We'll lead with our map of fill in the blank. How about this? On a scale of 1 to 10, my confidence level in this Browns team that is 7-3, with no Deshaun Watson this last week, is.
Well, I think that's a key portion of this, is right now the quarterback position being the most important position on the football field, and one that we have a lot of question marks. We love what DTR did on Sunday there at the end of the game, but you still have a lot of question marks there. So I would rate my confidence level in this Browns team at about a 7, which is pretty high, I would say, when you have so many question marks right now at the quarterback position. But it's because of the defense and what they've given us out there. It's because of the potential I think that there still exists in that running game. And then my confidence level also in the schedule going forward would probably be at about a 9, because I like some of the matchups that we've got on the docket. So overall, I think a 7. I like where the team's at right now. I would love to see some progression at that quarterback position to really solidify the Browns as a playoff team.
Yeah, my confidence right now, guys, is a 9. And that feels
9?
crazy to say.
9?
The only one that is subtracting this from being a perfect 10 is that quarterback position. Chris, this is the first time in my life.
You're showing your age.
Wow.
Here.
Okay,
You're showing your
all
age.
We talked about it last week.
Okay, only
where
the quarterback
Where the
position.
vibes on this team just feel so high, despite the turmoil that they've been through. I mean, how many times have we seen throughout Browns history, especially here recently, where you'd have a massive injury, a massive distraction, like a Nick Chubb goes down, and the rest of the team just throws in the towel. And then you have Deshaun Watson. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? We were doing day-to-day with Deshaun Watson for about 4 weeks at one point earlier here this season. So the fact that they were able to make it through all of that crap and come out of it at 7-3, that's why my confidence is a 9, because they're like a horror movie, Chris. We've made this analogy on the show before. Every time you think they're dead, they just come back for one more, and that's why I am just so confident in this team. Like, we're watching the Browns play the Steelers this past week, and that second half, that big touchdown run happens right off the rip. And of course, there's a piece of you that's thinking, Tomlin's going to get us again.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. But then at the same time, Stefanski did the right thing. Dink and dunk. They were conservative. They didn't turn the ball over. And then Dustin Hopkins comes in and saves the day. It's like, wow, we just keep getting these breaks over and over again. So I'm very confident right now, as confident that I've probably ever been, even with a 5th-round rookie starting this week.
I was going to say, no Watson, no Chubb, no Conklin. I think the common denominator, and we kind of alluded to it last week, is the fact that, I don't know, boys, I think there's a culture shift really happening. I know that's so cliche to say, but really, isn't this a team that you really think believes that they can win, and then they're going out and doing it despite some of these variables, unpredictable things that have happened?
Yeah, but it was so interesting in the post-game press conferences, especially hearing from guys like Myles Garrett, like David Njoku, that were here in the absolute mud. You know, they were here in the years of 1-15, 0-16, and they remember those days, you know, where Pittsburgh, you know, would have that big touchdown run, and then, okay, here's the onslaught, and the Browns get blown out. So it was interesting to hear them preach exactly what you're talking about. The culture has shifted, and now they're believers. You know, they're just like us. They're bought in. The buy-in out of this team is so real.
Even just seeing among a game that wasn't perfect, but the fact that the Steelers hung around and then we were the ones who came out victorious, feels like a different outcome than yours.
Well, the difference too, being kind of the old head here on the show, is you kind of wait for that dip. It's like a roller coaster with the Cleveland Browns. You get a high, you feel good for a week, you wait for that big dip. And I've been warning you guys that dip is coming. It's nice to see some consistency now, right? Yeah. We got the Cardinals, then we got the Ravens, then we get the Steelers. I was telling you going into the Steelers game, don't talk too loudly, don't get too optimistic, because the football gods are listening. And what happens, we have a good showing there against the Steelers. We get it done there. So that is good to see. That is a change in culture. Before, that would have been a letdown game for us, even in division. That didn't happen yesterday. So that does give me optimism. I'm not quite as optimistic as you are, Nick, to be honest. Maybe that's just me having gone through these wars for so long, but I do like the consistency we're starting to show on the field.
I do like your roller coaster analogy. I feel like maybe we're riding a little bit of the Raptor rather than the Power Tower,
Yeah.
We're not so dramatic with it.
It's up and down as dramatic as it was before.
It's not.
Not the demon drop. That's, again, for the old heads. The old heads over here.
Whatever it was back when you would. Do you still go to Cedar Point?
Oh, yeah. Cedar Point's the best. You ride the coasters up there.
We like a good Cedar Point shout out, good Ohio stuff.
I like that during the summer. During the winter, I'd prefer more consistency, especially out of my football team, right? And that's what they're giving us right now, Gab.
Yes.
Give us a gently rolling situation, not the demon drop. Okay, blank should be the Browns starting quarterback the rest of the season. I know I kind of already asked that, but we're riding with DTR.
We're going with DTR. Yeah, you got to stick with the guy. He showed you something enough, I think, on Sunday to continue with him, get some continuity here. You're starting on a season where you start bringing in guys like Joe Flacco now, and you start getting kind of concerned that we're going back to that old Browns. You talk about the jersey of the quarterback since '99. We're starting our own jersey for this season right now. You want to stop that as soon as possible. And if you keep DTR out there, keep developing it, that gives you that consistency you need out of the quarterback position.
Seeing Joe Flacco in a Browns jersey when those photos from practice drop, that's going to be super weird. Yeah. I'll say this, too. It's interesting how quickly we moved off of P.J. Walker, because P.J. Walker was winning games, and I think a big piece of that, dare I say the biggest piece, is he was just a turnover machine. And I think that's what they're hoping to get out of DTR, is just clean quarterback play. If DTR can be Brock Purdy, and I know that's a big ask because Brock Purdy went from Mr. Irrelevant to really good. But if DTR could be Brock Purdy and just play clean football, do exactly what we saw him do against the Steelers, and I get that it was boring. That second half was rough. They were having a hard time moving it downfield, but I think that was by design. You don't let your opposition create those turnovers and get that ball on a short field. The Browns are going to be just fine. I get that it's a big comparison, but if DTR could come even close to Brock Purdy, we are going to be really good, guys.
Yeah, and I think he has more of an upside than PJ. I mean, he has a big, bright future ahead of him. He's younger. It's time to develop him. He does have a lot to offer, and it's just a matter of giving him the time and the coaching and opportunity to do so.
He's got the wheels, too. He looked like Watson on some of those runs.
He really was. He was zooming all around. Okay, sideline. Oh, this is funny.
How about this?
Sideline reporters making up quotes is...
So to give a little context,
I was going to say, we need a little context. I know you're very passionate about this particular topic.
We both are. I think
it was
just
kind of funny to me. That's all. So Carissa Thompson told Pardon My Take she sometimes makes up stuff when a coach isn't able to talk to her. And the internet went ballistic. You had a very timely meme that just went off like a bomb on Twitter.
That she just talked to Joe Burrow and he was fine. That was right at halftime of the game, where obviously now he's out for the season for the Bengals. Bad news for them. They're kind of sharing in our misery there at the quarterback position. But
yeah.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the sideline reporter making things up?
I didn't know that all these the sideline reporters even had Twitter, guys. But every sideline reporter under the sun just came out of the woodwork. And Charissa Thompson was just getting absolutely lambasted.
Wow.
Like people, the pitchforks were out for Charissa Thompson. And she said it innocently. She was like, listen, if a coach is in a bad mood, I'm not going to pry him for answers, and I'll just make something up that he'll want to hear, like, oh, he told me that the guys have to play harder, play faster, really get up for one another, so it wasn't like she was completely lying.
Well,
and in a case like that, who says no? The coach isn't going to come out and say, no, I didn't say that. She's saying that's something that is perfectly reasonable for a coach to say. It works for the guys in the booth, so it really doesn't hurt anybody. But from an integrity standpoint, there is that question there. But I think, Gab, you thought people were a little too sanctimonious on this,
I thought they really grilled her in a way that was because, nobody's saying, oh, you should always plagiarize or make things up or say stuff that didn't happen. But I feel like given the context and having done some sideline reporting, I've never said anything that someone didn't say. But I can empathize with the fact that at the higher levels, coaches who are pissed off really don't want to talk to you, and it maybe just depends. I've always been able to talk to a coach even if they're angry, and it is terrifying because you're like, you kind of feel bad you're asking a question.
Yeah.
Because they're like kind of get out of my face type thing. But I've always, you do the little hustle over. you just got to get out of the way, and then you got to ask the question, And it's usually to a coach you weren't planning on talking to anyway, because the other guy, you thought you were going to talk to. But I don't know. I thought once the other sideline reporters, a couple of them started tweeting like, I have journalistic integrity and I would never do that, and I take my job seriously. I was like, okay, guys, sports is fun. The extent to which you could make up something in a scenario like that, I don't think she's saying word for word quotes, if I'm understanding correctly,
and she's
that
also
this is what he said verbatim and blah, blah, blah. I think what she had said later on Instagram was that, no, I mean, if they couldn't convert on third down X number of times, I pointed that out in my...
But wouldn't that be fun if we had sideline reporters that would just straight up make things up and get coaches going? Oh,
it's
man.
Hilarious,
I think a big piece in this, too, is, and Gab, you're exactly right, the soapboxes were out from all of the big J
right,
journalists
we work at the
that are out
sideline
there.
reporter, not to take away from sideline reporting. But I will say you're the sprinkles on top. That's how I always they told me. You're the sprinkles on top. You're adding some of that extra color. We already have the analyst and the color doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And sideline, you're the sprinkles on top. And I think we know that. So I just thought it was funny when everyone was like, journalistic integrity. I was like, well, okay.
How about this? She's not even worse. She's not a sideline reporter anymore. She's
booth.
She's a host.
Host.
Like people were so, and again, this is the internet for you. People were so mad about nothing. She's not a sideline reporter. People were calling for her job. This is not her job anymore.
It's not her job anymore. And, she's a very good-looking woman, and I think it was an easy target. And it came off. The internet's the internet. You couldn't not lay
internet.
off on it. McNeil, you couldn't not make the meme. It was
Evil
too
internet.
readily available for you, So,
kids.
whatever. It probably just blew up.
Alrighty, we are going to step aside. More fill in the blank because Ohio State and Michigan, other big rivalries coming up. Don't go anywhere. More of the Big Play Cleveland show straight ahead.
Oh, okay.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show, guys. We were finishing up our fill in the blank here. My favorite rivalry for any of my sports teams is blank. Chris, I got to hear from you first.
This is an easy one for me. Even though I grew up, my first team was the Cleveland Browns. I love the Cleveland Browns. So you'd naturally say, the Brown Steelers, like we saw this week. No, it's definitely OSU, Michigan. And that one has grown over my lifetime. So my grandfather, and I come about it very honestly, my grandfather, his doctor told him he could no longer listen to Ohio State games because it would get his blood pressure up so high. That was my great-grandfather. So, and that was specific for Ohio State. I moved around the state a little bit as a kid, and we spent a year up in Toledo. And I'll never forget, I was in grade school, and one of the things that they did is they had the bus divide. They put put up a couple of notebook pages, one on one side that said Michigan, one on one side that said OSU. And it was amazing how split it was. And back in those days, I was really, like I say, a Browns first. So I really didn't get college football. I thought it was like, the AAA for the pros. Yeah. So I sat down where I sat down normally, which happened to be the Michigan side. I never heard the end of that until I left that school. I had to leave that school entirely to get away from it. And then, of course, I ended up going to Ohio State. Yeah. I'm down there in Columbus. I respect the traditions. I love the traditions. I love everything we do around it, from skull session to, all of the different build-up activities they have on the week. And it's just something that the entire state, the entire country, everybody recognizes just how big this game is. And it stops everything right there after Thanksgiving. It's so huge, and it's huge for our families, too.
It's grown, especially in the last 3 years, that Michigan has unfortunately gotten the best of Ohio State. It's grown just by multiples, like the rivalry this year. And I wish there was a way. If I could get a genie in a bottle this week, my one wish would be for Jim Harbaugh not to coach the game. I don't really care that much about that, but to be there for the handshake. I want to see him shake Ryan Day's hand, because just this edition of the game, Ohio State, Michigan, feels like it's so much more because of all this nonsense with the cheating scandal, who tattled on who, what's to come of all of it down the road. This right here is peak theater, and this game Saturday is like absolutely must watch. And the Buckeyes are underdogs.
At 3.5-point underdogs.
And we'll talk about it in our betting segment
right now on Typico. I'm jumping on that. By the way.
You already didn't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you already did, McNeil.
Absolutely. And thank you to the Buckeyes for this past weekend, beating up on Minnesota and continuing to beat up on Minnesota. We saw them kind of not really quit, but put in the backups the week before. And that hurt me a little bit in my betting because they didn't hit the over. They hit the over easily this weekend, Nick, and that feels so good.
All right, how about this, guys? We will transition into our big play bets, always presented to you by Typico Sportsbook. Download Typico Sportsbook now, and when you do, enter promo code BIGPLAY100. That's all caps, all one word. Big Play 100. And when you bet $25, you're going to get $100 back, a Benjamin, back on the Big Play squad to bet on all of these big games coming up this week. I mean, you're talking about Thanksgiving football. You got Black Friday football this year. You got Ohio State, Michigan. Download Typico. Check out our Big Play boosts. We are going to be very active in that Typico app, giving you guys the best odds on your favorite Ohio teams, player props, you name it. Download Typico today. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. You got to be 21 years or older to gamble in Ohio. Let's take a look at some bets this week, guys. We'll actually start with the Browns. Browns and Broncos, another rivalry as we're talking about that. And we're going to build our big play boost. The Browns open in this game, like Ohio State, underdogs. Plus 2.5 for the Browns. Were you surprised to see that, Chris?
Not with the way the Broncos are playing right now.
It's so aggravating. I thought they were
4-game win streak. Russell Wilson's doing a lot better. And I got a confession to make, you guys. Did you know this about me? I like Russell Wilson as a. I've always liked Russell Wilson. Yeah, I've always been a Russell Wilson fan. I think he's a good guy. He's got Sierra, who I grew up loving. She just like, I loved her growing up because first of all, she looks like a 400 runner, and I was into track, and I'm like, oh, this, not only is she beautiful and talented, she's so athletic looking.
Your spirit animal.
Yeah, she's my spirit animal. I just love her, and I love their relationship and their family, and she just came out with a new song. That's just how we roll.
And then she married just the corniest dude on the planet.
Yeah, I was going to say the both of them to become the corniest couple on the planet.
Stop that. He's a good guy, and who doesn't love a corny joke?
I mean, I'm all for a corny joke, but his existence
I get what you're saying. His
corny.
Existence is corny.
The high knees on the airplane. I think that's really what did it.
Well, you know
what?
Then did you guys think Tim Tebow was corny then?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, whatever. I think that he's genuine, and I'm okay with the corniness and the whatever.
As Urban Meyer once said, that's enough of the Tim Tebow stuff.
Yeah, will you allow me put in our big play boost this week an under for especially with how great this Browns defense is looking and just my general disliking towards Russell Wilson. Could we do under Russell Wilson passing yards as one of the legs in this thing?
Yeah.
Fade Russell Wilson.
You're
Fade
fading my Russell?
Yeah.
All right. I think, where was it? He has a 69% completion rate.
He's playing better recently.
There it is. Yeah, 2,065 yards, 19 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the season, plus 232 rushing yards for Russell Wilson. If you want to go,
so we're fading Russell Wilson as the first leg.
You're fading Russell Wilson.
Second leg, I was thinking, who had a tough game on Sunday? It was David Njoku. David Njoku. He had some drops. He's our boy. We like to see him in the end zone. We're always betting him in the end zone.
Mr.
Can we go over under on number of catches?
Yeah.
Can we do a catch?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, receptions. Because I would really like to see him. I don't know what the number might be, but I think we're going to utilize him quite a bit. We're going to go to him. We're going to try and build his confidence up a little bit. He was hanging his head after that game. Yeah. Had a big catch down the stretch. Had some big drops during the game.
Let's go 9
I look
receptions.
for a bounce back.
He was targeted 15 times, only caught 7. So what is 9 too high for
That's
him?
way
too
really
high.
That's really high. I think we got to go like 3.5.
Although we did throw the ball over 40 times.
But if he
DTR said that he's the best tight end in America.
Wow.
Which is crazy. A crazy quote.
But imagine, guys, if he was targeted that many times and that he can catch some of those passes, I just feel like
I just don't know that the odds could go up that high. I'll be honest with you. I think 9, like a 9 alt line might be too high. So we'll let Typico make the judgment call.
I don't usually bet on
there.
receptions to begin with.
It is in the weeds. Check it out on the Big Play app. But yeah, he called Njoku the best tight end in America, and Njoku FaceTimed Kevin Stefanski from his house after the game on the jugs machine, catching passes with it turned up. DTR throws the football tied for the hardest, only with Josh Allen in the combine since they started measuring that stat like a decade ago. So DTR's throwing that football hard at David Njoku, and I think he turned up that jugs machine after the game. So let's go
for
with
you
that.
young guys. You know what that reminds me of? When Bernie Kosar was out, there was a young guy who came in by the name of Mike Pagel. Mike Pagel threw the ball a lot harder than Bernie did, and a lot of the receivers had a tough time with it. So it's very interesting you say that.
Oh, that's
all right. So
cool.
we have under for Russell Wilson passing yards. We have over for David Njoku receptions. And then are we going Browns plus 2.5? Browns money line. I know there's a lot of value in that.
How about Miles for another sack?
All right.
Can we just throw that on there? Let's keep it going. He had 2 sacks again this week. Let's go for another one.
I like it. We will keep that momentum going, and we are going to step aside. We will fill you guys in on the rest of our big play bets right after this. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We're putting a bow on our betting segment, building you guys some bets this week. We just talked about our Big Play boost. We have Myles Garrett getting a sack. We have the under on Russell Wilson's passing yards. And then we have the over on David Njoku receptions. He's going to redeem himself from that game. Guys, let's look at Sunday Night Football. The Steelers and the Bengals are in a pick'em at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati. Sunday Night Football, AFC North matchup, but without Joe Burrow. It's Jake Browning getting the start for Cincinnati. Chris, who do you have, Bengals or Steelers?
Give me the Bengals at home. I think Pittsburgh loses 2 straight Ohio teams without their starting quarterbacks, and that's going to happen this weekend. Yeah, I think the Bengals rally and they win this ball game.
All right, I'm with you. Let's go. Jake Browning will back behind Cincinnati and try to now bury Pittsburgh in that little AFC wild card race. Really leave this thing between the Browns and the Ravens. Gab, you good with that?
I like it.
All right, let's move right along. Lakers and Cavs, Saturday night. Who will have the most combined points, rebounds, and assists in this game? You got LeBron, you got Donovan Mitchell. I'm going to go ahead and give it to Mitchell. I think he'll have something to play for in this one. With LeBron back here in Cleveland, kind of show that he's the new king, the new age. I'll have Donovan, most points, rebounds, and assists.
Now, are we sure that he's going to be playing?
Oh, you're never sure, especially in the NBA.
This is the NBA. Are we sure LeBron's going to be playing, right?
That's a fair point.
I think LeBron, he always likes to show off when he's back here in Cleveland. The rebounds, I think there's a mismatch there between him and Donovan Mitchell as well. So I'll take LeBron overall, but I still like the Cavs to win this ball game.
All right, over under, Gab, for you. Plates of turkey eaten this Thanksgiving. Let me hear it. I'll give you 1.5 plates.
For me?
You going 2?
I don't know. Well, first of all, let me just say I'm also on King James. I feel like when he comes back to the land,
There we go.
2 against 1.
Love my LeBron when he comes back. But anyway, okay, plates of turkey. I'm gonna go under because I'm a ham girl on Thanksgiving.
Nice.
Okay, ham or turkey?
I go turkey.
I go turkey too.
But they're
Thanksgiving overrated, by the way.
both very smart foods, right? You got the turkey, very intelligent. You've got the pig, also very intelligent. So it's a very smart holiday.
Very intelligent holiday. Either way, we will be indulging in it. We'll be betting it. Download Tipico, and we will see